And Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula has amended once again the lockdown regulations on minibus taxis. So loading capacity has been raised to 70%, which means a minibus licensed to carry 15 passengers is now limited. And taxis are also allowed to operate from 5 in the morning until 8 at night, having been previously being limited to rush hours. So let's cross now to Maageketla Mohlabe. He's at the Bree Street taxi rank in the Joburg CBD. Maageketla, good morning.
Good morning to you. Good morning to our viewers, Sakina.
Maageketla, I'm not sure if you can hear me at this stage. What can we expect from Minister Mbalula following his visit to the Noord Street taxi rank yesterday and addressing the crowds and also engaging taxi bosses yesterday? So what is he expected to do today?
Well, good morning to you, Sakina. Yeah, what we are expecting to really see the minister, of course, there will be some walkabout at this taxi rank. We are at Bree taxi rank in Johannesburg. We are expecting the minister as well as his counterparts to sanitize the station here and, of course, to observe some of the rules that have actually been put in place in as far as the lockdown is concerned. And, of course, you did mention in that intro, Sakina, to say that there was that particular dramatic U-turn in that resolution from 100% loading capacity to 70%. But I think it will be quite important to really start with that question, perhaps, Minister, to say what informed that particular move in the first place, 100% loading capacity?
Well, 100% was informed by the demand that the taxi industry is making a loss in this time around, and therefore with the capacity of loading, they will not be in a position to ferry people and to offset some of their debt in terms of paying the driver and petrol and all of that. So we then discussed the model from 50%, and then we arrived at 70%. And we as well then introduced 100%, that where the taxi is filling up to 100%, it should happen strictly under the supervision of ensuring that everybody in the taxi has got a mask like this. So we realize that it will cause confusion. We don't need it, and therefore we stick with 70%. The industry, taxi people themselves agree with that, and then everybody else says 100%, and the National Command Center also emphasizes 70%. So we stick with that. And then we take out the 100% because it can be abused. And besides, we listen to people because this is the people campaign. So when we spoke about that last night, the commuters and everyone around the country said, no, Minister, you cannot go in that direction. Don't even start. If we are about social distance, stay with social distance. So you don't have to wait for 5 weeks, 7 weeks to understand what you are doing is not in comfort and at the same time could compromise the campaign. So that is why I reported to the minister responsible for the law regulation in terms of disaster, Minister Nkosazana, and besides, it's a decision of the Command Council, and then henceforth, it is easy for us to go ahead and implement.
And of course, Minister, I mean, you called that press conference yesterday, and of course, I saw some officials lined up here in Johannesburg. Perhaps relook at that one, because, I mean, a lot of criticism came through to say that why would you then call a lot of people to come and line up in Johannesburg? And of course, we also saw some residents coming through amid this lockdown. Don't you think that somehow overpowered or somehow took away the purpose of the lockdown?
Well, I think yesterday was not to talk to the people. It was a provincial event, not to raise awareness, but at the same time to emphasize order. As you could see, in the rank up there where we were, people still converge in numbers. And maybe that is not the context you got, because they converge in numbers, they undermine the law, and at the same time they don't, respect social distance. And so that is why we spoke to them in distance, and at the same time the message went well, because it was well received, and then they understood that risking getting together in numbers and numbers all the time, it doesn't help. We've got to keep the social distance. And we're talking to them, and it was well received, and they understood that. So it's not like they were converging. They passed through that, and we knew when we went there that is the biggest challenge that we've got. Not all the time that we must use cop and donor. We've got to find a way to conscientize people and make them aware that everybody is falling into line, the churches, the soccer leaders in the country, and everybody else. So we can't leave our people to undermine the laws and simply rely on the fact that the law will apply by scope and donor, and that's it. We've got to conscientize. We've got to reach out. And yesterday, it was a message that we're driving to ensure and conscientize as much as we can, and that is important. And the way in which everybody, like taxis, undermine the law, they will be impounded, and the law will descend upon them. And that is it, and that is what we're doing. And the message was well received and well taken by the people, and they understood. Because in most spaces, it's business as usual. People don't understand when you say, don't travel, don't go anywhere else. De-emphasize the question of unnecessary movement. Get what you want where you live. Come into Sandton and come into these places for shopping. This is not the time. Shop where you live. Buy what you can eat where you live. That is the message we are driving to the people.
And let's just wrap it up, Minister. Times have also been relaxed. Talk to us about that. And also just wrap it up for us. What can we expect to see here at Bree Taxi Rank today?
Times have actually been relaxed to 10 o'clock because the complaint also from the citizens was that the shops, for those who want to use taxis to go do shopping, 9 o'clock is not realistic because that is when the shops open. So it is 5 to 10, which is reasonable. And then from there, it is 4 to 9 to enable the essential workers who came to work in the morning to catch up the drive in the afternoon up to 9 o'clock. We think that is reasonable. Everybody in terms of the taxi industry acknowledges that and support it. And so that is what is important, and we are happy with that.
A taxi that needs to load about 15 people will now have to load about 10 of them. Does this include the driver? And this is the question that I've actually been getting ever since I arrived here. Minister, just clear some of this confusion, please. Do these numbers include the drivers themselves?
The number of 70% include 2 people in front, and then the taxi have got 4 seats. It is 2, and 1 at the back. And that is what we'll demonstrate practically here today. What does that mean in practical terms, so that you understand exactly what we're talking about. A normal taxi will be carrying up to 14 people, up to 15 people, and then that is what actually happened when it moves out of the rank with people full up to capacity. So you're reducing that so that you allow social distance, but at the same time you give people masks and you sanitize. And that is it. So 100% means that you are too close to each other with the masks. So it doesn't make sense. So what is important is that we must maintain the 70% that is realistic. And everybody agrees with that, and that is the way to go. And that is final. There's no backward movement, forward ever.
Thanks so much for your time, Minister. And of course, that's Minister of Transport, Fikile Mbalula, clearing some of the confusion that we've had this morning, Sakina. I mean, some of the drivers saying that they really are confused with regards to some of these regulations. The Minister, of course, saying that these numbers include the drivers themselves. If we say 10 people, it means including the drivers. But we will be monitoring the situation here at the Bree Taxi Rank, as they will be sanitizing the taxis as well as the entrances to this Bree Taxi Rank. But of course, we will take a short break and we'll be right back in a moment.